In 2018, physicists from ITMO University published a theoretical study modelling how the Great Pyramid might interact with specific radio waves. While the paper showed that the pyramid's geometry could theoretically concentrate electromagnetic energy under highly specific idealized laboratory conditions, the authors explicitly stated it was a purely theoretical exercise, not proof that the ancient pyramid was a functioning machine. 4,000 years before that study was published, a Sumerian scribe pressed a reed stylus into wet clay and listed 5 cities that existed before a great flood. The 4th city was given to a god of light, and the technology he guarded has a name. Inside the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England, behind a glass case on the ground floor sits an 8-inch clay prism. It is roughly the size of a large fist, 4 sides, 2 columns of cuneiform text on each face. Tiny wedge-shaped marks cover every surface. This object is called the Weld-Blundell prism. It is the most complete surviving copy of the Sumerian king list, one of the oldest chronological records ever found. Scholars believe a wooden spindle once ran through its centre so it could be rotated and read on all 4 sides. The text was carved sometime around 1700 BCE, but the events it records reach back far further than that. The Sumerian king list is not one document. It is a critical reconstruction assembled from nearly 20 ancient fragments, published in 1939 by the Danish Sumerologist Thorkild Jacobsen. The list follows a strict and repetitive pattern. It names a city, it names the kings who ruled there, and it records how long each king reigned. In the earliest entries, those reign lengths span thousands of years. The first section begins with a single line that has fascinated scholars for over a century. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. The text then names 8 kings who ruled before a great flood. Their reigns are measured in units called sars, ners, and sosses. A sar equals 3,600 years, a ner equals 600, a sos equals 60. In total, these 8 rulers held power for 241,200 years. That number is clearly not literal in the modern sense. Scholars recognize the king list as a political and theological document, not a neutral chronicle. The antediluvian reign lengths reflect symbolic number systems and scribal conventions, but the cities the list names are not symbolic at all. They are real. Their ruins have been found in the deserts of southern Iraq. A separate and even older text called the Eridu Genesis names 5 specific cities that existed before the flood. The firstling of the cities, Eridu, was given to the leader Nudimmud. The second, Bad Tibira, was given to the prince and the sacred one. The third, Larak, was given to Pahilsag. The 4th, Sippar, was given to the gallant Utu. The 5th, Shurapak, was given to Ansud. Archaeologists have located the remains of each one. Eridu in particular, deep in the marshlands of southern Mesopotamia, is one of the oldest known settlements on Earth. Sumerian tradition held that Eridu was the very first civilization and the place where the gods decided to create humankind. But the 4th city is the one that matters most to this story. Sippar was known in later Akkadian sources as the City of Books. It was assigned to Utu, the solar deity who governed light, truth and justice. According to the Babylonian priest Berossus, writing for Greek audiences centuries later, the god Enki personally instructed a mortal to bury all writings in Sippar before the flood arrived. This detail does not appear in the older cuneiform sources, but the implication is clear. Sippar was the designated vault for antediluvian knowledge. The city given to the god of light was the city chosen to preserve the technology of the gods. And that technology had a specific name that appears across multiple Sumerian texts. In Sumerian mythology, there exists a class of objects that scholars have struggled to categorize for more than 100 years. They are not gods, they are not cities, they are not kings, they are called the Emi, and according to every text that mentions them, they are the reason civilization functions at all. In the myth known as Inanna and Enki, the god Enki is depicted as the guardian of the Emi. These are described as fundamental powers and decrees of the gods which enable human civilization to exist. The great Sumerian scholar Samuel Noah Kramer identified over 100 distinct Emi in the tablets. The list is extraordinary. It includes lordship, godship, truth, the art of the carpenter, the craft of the metalworker, the art of writing, the craft of the leatherworker, the knowledge of music, the art of the hero, and the power of the flood. Some are clearly physical technologies like weaving and musical instruments. Others are abstract concepts like victory, counsel, and the troubled heart. Here is the detail that makes the ME so difficult for modern scholars to explain. The tablets never describe what any of the ME look like, but they are clearly represented by physical objects of some kind. Not only are they stored in a prominent location in the Temple of Enki, but the goddess Inanna loads them onto her boat after receiving them. She sails them down the river from Eridu to the city of Uruk. When she arrives, she displays them publicly before the people. The tablets treat the ME as things that can be carried, stolen, transported across water and exhibited in public. Yet they simultaneously encompass abstract powers like truth and victory. No scholar has fully resolved this contradiction. For over a century, the ME have been filed under religious metaphor. But the scribes who recorded these texts were not poets composing allegory. They were temple administrators. Their other tablets record grain inventories, cattle counts, and labour rosters. When the same scribal tradition that measured barley by the bushel also recorded that the ME were loaded onto a boat and sailed down a river, that detail was not decorative. It was functional. It was meant to be understood as fact. There is one further detail about the ME that has received almost no attention outside specialist literature. In several tablet sequences, the ME are described as capable of being lost. Not destroyed. Lost. Inanna fears they will be taken from her on the return journey to Uruk. Enki dispatches creatures called the Kurgara to intercept her boat and recover them. The anxiety running through the myth is not that the ME might be broken or rendered inert. It is that they might end up in the wrong hands, or in no hands at all. That is not how a civilization describes an abstraction. Victory and truth do not get intercepted on a river. Objects do. The entire dramatic structure of the myth only makes sense if the ME were physical, portable, and finite in number. Something you could lose. Something worth sending an armed escort to retrieve. Something that, if it sank to the bottom of the Euphrates, would be genuinely gone. The scribes who wrote this understood that distinction. The scholars who inherited their work have been slower to follow. But what if the scribes were describing something physically measurable? What if the power they attributed to their gods was not supernatural but electromagnetic? In 2018, the international research team at ITMO University applied theoretical physics to the geometry of the Great Pyramid at Giza. They did not treat the structure as a tomb. They treated it as a resonant cavity interacting with electromagnetic radiation. They modelled how radio waves with wavelengths between 200 and 600 meters would behave when they encountered the limestone and granite mass. What they found was remarkable. Under resonance conditions, the pyramid concentrates electromagnetic energy in its internal chambers and beneath its base. The king's chamber, positioned roughly 40 meters above the foundation, functions as an electromagnetic focal point at specific wavelengths. The results were published in the Journal of Applied Physics. The pyramid is not a passive monument sitting silently in the desert. It is an active electromagnetic structure, and it has been functioning this way since the day it was completed. The granite used in the king's chamber contains significant concentrations of feldspar and quartz. Both are piezoelectric. The chamber walls are not simply stone. They are a material that responds to pressure and vibration by generating charge. Whatever was placed inside that room and whatever ceremonies were conducted within it were taking place inside an active electromagnetic environment. That was not an accident of construction. It was the point. It is not alone. 11,600 years ago, someone built a complex of massive stone enclosures on a windswept hilltop in southeastern Turkey. The site is called Göbekli Tepe. Mainstream archaeology attributes its construction to nomadic hunter-gatherers. Some researchers have explored archaeoacoustics at the site, noting that its stone enclosures naturally produce echoes and resonances between 95 and 120 Hz, frequencies common in many enclosed stone spaces. However, mainstream archaeologists and geophysicists emphasize that these are natural acoustic properties of stone architecture, not an intentional high-tech electromagnetic mechanism designed to alter human brain chemistry. The researchers noted that this discovery is in direct conflict with the accepted understanding of the technological capacity of the people who built the site. The pattern extends across the ancient world. In Brittany, France, the megaliths of Carnac stand in long rows across the countryside. Beneath them run 31 fractures of the most seismically active earthquake zone in France. The stones are rich in quartz. Quartz is a piezoelectric material. When it is compressed or subjected to vibration, it generates an electrical charge. The constant seismic activity beneath Carnac keeps the megaliths in a perpetual state of low-level vibration. While quartz crystals do exhibit a piezoelectric effect when subjected to extreme mechanical stress in laboratory settings, there is no scientific evidence that ancient standing stones generate sustained, measurable electricity from everyday tectonic vibrations, or that ancient builders selected these stones for electromagnetic purposes. Stone that generates electricity when it vibrates, chambers that focus electromagnetic energy into their cores, pillars that produce magnetic fields strong enough to alter brain function. These structures were built thousands of years ago, and every single one of them is still operating right now. But there is something far larger than any single structure, something that has been running since the Earth first developed an atmosphere. In 1952, the German physicist Winfried Otto Schumann predicted mathematically that the space between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere would sustain standing electromagnetic waves. He was correct. The Schumann resonance pulses at a fundamental frequency of approximately 7.83 Hz, with harmonic peaks at 14.3, 20.8, 27.3, and 33.8 Hz. It is generated continuously by lightning activity around the planet and sustained by the physical geometry of the Earth itself. The circumference of the planet is roughly 40,000 kilometers. The speed of light divides into that distance to produce a standing wave at precisely this frequency. You cannot hear it. It is an electromagnetic signal, and it has been continuous for billions of years. What makes this frequency extraordinary is its relationship to the human brain. Researchers at Laurentian University in Canada demonstrated real-time coherence between variations in the Schumann resonance and human brain activity spectra within the 6 to 16 Hz band. The electromagnetic field generated by the Earth's ionospheric cavity mirrors the spectral patterns of the human brain itself. In 1960, Professor R. Weaver of the Max Planck Institute constructed an underground bunker specifically designed to shield human subjects from the 7.83 Hz signal. Over 4 weeks, the volunteers developed headaches, emotional instability, and physical illness. When the frequency was artificially reintroduced into the bunker, their symptoms resolved. The body did not adapt to the absence of the signal, it deteriorated. The frequency is not background noise the brain has learned to ignore. It is a biological requirement as fundamental as oxygen and water. The implications reached beyond the laboratory. Space agencies like NASA have thoroughly documented that the primary health challenges astronauts face in space are caused by microgravity, which causes muscle and bone loss and cosmic radiation. Spacecraft do not use Schumann resonance generators to keep astronauts healthy. Their medical suites focus instead on rigorous exercise regimens, specialized diets, and radiation shielding. That technology is now standard equipment on all long-duration missions. Human beings cannot function properly without the frequency the Earth has been producing since before life existed. Now consider what happened 12,800 years ago. Researchers studying sediment layers across North America, Europe, and parts of the Middle East have identified unusually high concentrations of platinum, iridium, microspherules, melt glass, and nanodiamonds at a specific geological boundary. In 2024, a team from the University of South Carolina published findings confirming the presence of shocked quartz at multiple sites dating to this exact layer. Shocked quartz is sand with an internal fracture pattern that can only form under extreme heat and pressure, the kind produced by a cosmic impact. The comet responsible is estimated to have been 100 kilometers wide. It fragmented into thousands of pieces before detonating in the atmosphere. The airburst generated temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius. Wildfires swept across entire continents. Megafauna vanished. The Clovis archaeological culture disappeared. Global temperatures plummeted into a near-glacial period lasting more than 1,000 years. This hypothesis remains actively debated, But dozens of independent studies have now confirmed impact markers at Younger Dryas boundary sites on multiple continents. The debate is no longer whether something catastrophic happened at this boundary. The debate is over the precise mechanism. The evidence of the event itself has moved beyond serious dispute. What has not been resolved is what was lost when it happened. What knowledge, what infrastructure, what accumulated understanding of the electromagnetic principles encoded in stone was erased in the fires and the cold that followed. The Sumerian texts describe a flood that ended the world and a handful of survivors who carried the ME through it. Whatever the ME actually were, someone believed they were worth saving. Someone believed that without them, civilization could not be rebuilt. The Sumerian king list divides all of history into two eras, before the flood and after the flood. The Eridogenesis describes 5 cities that existed before the cataclysm and the divine knowledge systems they housed. Göbekli Tepe was constructed within the Younger Dryas window by people who understood acoustic resonance and electromagnetic amplification at a level modern archaeology cannot explain. And then, around 8000 BCE, someone deliberately buried the entire complex. They filled in every enclosure with rubble and soil and sealed it beneath the hilltop. They hid it on purpose as if they were preserving it for a future that had not yet arrived. The Weld-Blundell prism sits in its glass case in Oxford. Most visitors walk past it without stopping. They do not know what the tiny wedge-shaped marks on its surface actually say. They do not know it names 5 cities that existed before a flood. They do not know that the 4th city was given to the god of light and designated as the vault for all knowledge that came before. The Great Pyramid still focuses electromagnetic energy into its chambers. The pillars of Göbekli Tepe still produce magnetic fields. The megaliths of Carnac still hum with electricity drawn from the earth beneath them. And the Schumann's resonance still pulses through the ionosphere at 7.83 Hz, matching the frequency band of human consciousness. The scribes who carved those tablets 4,000 years ago did not have oscilloscopes. They did not have satellite arrays. They did not have physics journals, but they described objects that store power, structures that house divine force. A system of technologies that enables civilization to function, and a catastrophe that nearly erased all of it, except for what was buried in the 4th city. Somewhere in the deep past, someone built structures that amplify the electromagnetic frequency of the Earth. Billions of years before that, the frequency itself switched on. No one has ever turned it off. The real magic isn't an ancient electrical machine, but the enduring power of human storytelling. By examining these ancient tablets and structures, we aren't looking at blueprints for a power plant, but rather a profound reflection of how early civilizations used their creativity to explain the invisible forces of the world around them.